In today's video, we're going to be talking about the future of Final Fantasy. This has stemmed from an interview from a podcast between Naoki Yoshida and Shuhei Yoshida, and they discuss all things Final Fantasy 14, 16, and the future of Final Fantasy. So I thought it'd be an interesting discussion point, and I guess with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. As always, got you covered with timestamps down below. All I ask is for you to support the channel and hit the thumbs up button. Also, the article that we're going to be borrowing from, which is Games Radar, and the podcast itself, which is an interesting watch. And if you want to have a look at the history of Yoshida and how he's approached Final Fantasy 14 and 16 and the questions he was posed, that podcast is down below as well. So let's switch straight over to the article. So let's just read straight through this. Final Fantasy 16 producer Naoki Yoshida, aka Yoshi P, has floated around two very early ideas for Final Fantasy 17, a hybrid of real-time and more traditional turn-based combat, and another that would bring the series back to its pixel art roots. Speaking to Sony veteran Shuhei Yoshida for the Game Maker's Notebook podcast, Yoshi P was asked whether he'll be directing Final Fantasy 17. After hesitating because he's on the board of directors now, he skirted around the question and offered that maybe it's time for someone new instead of having the same old guys handle the next one. And a quote borrowed from that interview is, "I think in some ways it would be good to look to the future and bring in a younger generation with more youthful sensibilities to make a new Final Fantasy with challenges that suit today's world." So let's talk about what we've just read. Let's switch back to me on full screen and let's have a look. So basically, Yoshi P thinks it would be good to pass it on to a younger generation because the same people that have been working on it have been working on Final Fantasy for a very long time, in particular Business Unit 1 and Creative Business Unit 3. 3 created 14 and 16, and 1 have been scattering about doing Final Fantasies from like 7 onwards when they broke down them into different things. I may be wrong, don't quote me on that, but we've had the same folk work on these games for a while now. What would I like to see? I would like to see maybe someone new take the helm. Maybe there's a fresh perspective. Maybe they can bring something to the table that hasn't been brought before, because I think another quote that Yoshi P said in that interview is the fact that Final Fantasy is meant to be a challenge. It's all about challenging ideas and moving forward with it. Final Fantasy 16 went in a different direction with its action-based style combat, and to be fair, I fell in love with its storytelling, and I think, in my eyes, it's a success. It was my game of the year. It's a discussion for another time, but they did well, and it further challenged what Final Fantasy is. So it would be nice to have a fresh perspective. Maybe they may still go down the action style route. Me personally, I think Final Fantasy VII Remake and its series has nailed a good blend of new and old with its kind of mixed combat, and I really want to see that going forward. But at the same time, if we see more of that, will that start to get stagnant? How do we reinvent the wheel each and every time? Do we go back to the roots and have a pixel game? But I do agree that we need maybe someone new with a fresh set of eyes to take the franchise forward. Obviously not taking it all on their own, have some direction by the guys that have made games past, but a nice fresh face to drive the series forward from 17 onwards would be really nice to see. So let's switch back straight to the interview and following up on this. Following up on that, Yoshida asked Yoshi P what advice he would give to a younger Final Fantasy VII director, and this is important, and the famed producer proceeded his answer by saying Final Fantasy is about challenging what's been done before, and that's the quote I was trying to quote. If I just held on a little bit longer, I would have had it, but it's very important. Challenging what's been done before. Learn from the past. Also, Yoshi P said, while I'm certainly not to pick a fight with the older games, we all make Final Fantasy games thinking mine will be the most fun. So my advice is just to dive in and put down on paper what you believe would be the most enjoyable Final Fantasy before thinking too hard about it. Then moving further on is then from there you can decide things like, since Final Fantasy 16 was action time combat, my Final Fantasy is going to both have real-time combat and turn-based, or you could go the other extreme and return it to a fully turn-based pixel art roots. And to that lost option, Yoshida replied, that would be groundbreaking, in referring to going back to the pixel-based games. So this is the crux of the discussion that I want to talk about. What would we like from Final Fantasy XVII? Me, as much as I would love, especially playing the pixel remasters and taking them on, 100% in them, and taking it all in and learning from that past, I don't think I would be able to move forward with another mainline entry going back to that. I think that has been done before, and what Octopath Traveler is doing, Octopath Traveler 2 Triangle Strategy with that HD 2D, is where you will get those type of games. Now, that doesn't close the idea of Final Fantasy going back to turn-based at all. I would love it. I'm just trying to look through broader eyes. We know, especially from Final Fantasy 15 onwards, that they had that message that they want Final Fantasy to be available to people that have been fans of the series for time past, and more importantly, to newcomers. I think taking the pixel art may jeopardize that message just a little bit, and that's a personal opinion, but something you could do with the pixel-based games is just now split Final Fantasy into two paths, continue the mainline series and challenge those old ideas and learn and build upon them and come up with something new, and carry 17, 18, 19, 20 with that tradition. But let's just spin off a little bit. Have another Final Fantasy sub-series, maybe Final Fantasy and the Four Warriors of Light, or Final Fantasy something or other. I'm sure there's a good name that we could probably come up together with, and let that harken to its past. Let's have those pixel games, learn from the pixel remasters, maybe throw some HD 2D in there, have these big world maps with various side quests, and carry that on. That way, I think we can appease the audiences quite nicely, the newcomers and people like me, because I will play every mainline entry regardless of what it brings to the table. Remember, I've stated many times before, action combat is not my cup of tea, but Final Fantasy 16 ended up being my game of the year in 2023. It's nice to just see where it will go, and I would not mind harkening back to something that gave me nostalgia, having those pixel graphics, exploring a new pixel world map, traversing the land on a boat, then moving to an airship, then maybe going to the moon once again, and maybe going underground once again. I would love to see it. I really would, but I feel, me personally, that would be the best direction to go in. One path that concentrates on pixels and classic, maybe have a PS1 kind of game out there as well, but then continue to evolve and adapt with the mainline series. So that is what I think. And if I was to present what I would like from Final Fantasy 17, again, Final Fantasy 7 Remake's combat has the nail in the head for me. It's that blend between new and old, and it mixes so well. You have the options to have it completely turn-based to a certain extent in the wait mode, and then you have the whole action mode as well, and it's a real good time. Like, I'm excited for Rebirth, and I'm excited for the third game. I'll be sad to see that system be left behind with those three games. I hope that they pick it back up again. But yeah, there are my thoughts on what I would like from the future of Final Fantasy, going off this great interview. And again, please go to the link below, watch that podcast if you want to have a little bit of a history lesson with Yoshi P and what he's worked on and his kind of thinking going towards Final Fantasy 14, 16, and his thoughts on a Final Fantasy 17. It's down below. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in that comment section down there. And I guess with that, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of that content. Hit the thumbs up button, and as always, get involved in the comment section below. Until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.